Let's describe the theories of government that we talked about yesterday in class. In your opinion, how did government originate? What theory do you believe is true? Why? So this might take a little bit more time. How about I give you 5 to 8 minutes? We'll go over it. I know, 5 to 8. I was gonna do 5 to 10, but that's an extra 5 then. Yeah, you can't do that. Can't do that. All right, so there you go. All right, let's get to it here. So, theories of government. Let's go over those theories. What was one of them we talked about yesterday? Go ahead, Gracie. Evolutionary theory. Good job. And what was the thought of the evolutionary theory? Yeah, good job. Good job. So the elders would become the rulers, that they would become the people in charge of that society. Good. And why would it be the elders? They're smarter, right? More experience. Okay, good job. So it's thought to be that these people who were older, they held more knowledge, that they were more experienced with the world. They could make these decisions. Okay, good job. Good job. All right. What's another theory we talked about? Go ahead, Ryan. Force theory. Good job. Describe that. It's just basically whoever has the most power Yeah, good job. Good job. So utilizing the military to advance your interest, your power. Okay, so whoever had this, whoever was stronger, whoever had the most force would win, and that's how that maybe that form of government came about. Okay, good. So detailing on that, this is why countries build territories. Well, they create territories, they look for territories, they expand their empire. Okay, building their walls, you name it. Okay, defenses, strengthening their military. Good. All right, Connor, what's another one? Divine right. Good job. What's divine right theory? Okay, good job. Good job. So originally belief that these people were chosen by God or descendants of God, that these people were viewed as that high of a standard, and religion taking a primary focus in this type of government. All right, good, good. So divine right, these people were descendants of God or chosen by God to lead their society and in their religious fashion. Good. All right, Rooster, last one. Social contract. Good job. And describe that.
Just like if the government provides like all the services and safety, provide that
Yeah, good job. So you're giving up certain freedoms, certain rights in order for protection. Okay, public services, maintaining a national security, and making economic decisions, right? So the four functions, purposes of government. So you're giving up certain rights in order to be protected by that government. All right, good, good. And with Thomas Hobbes especially, he thought that people were I guess you could say vicious, that they were brutal, that they were in many terms bad, immoral. So he thought, what was his belief of the proper form of government? Connor, you said this yesterday. A dictatorship's good job. Authoritarian rule, good. So maybe an absolute monarchy where the king holds all the power. Okay, because he believed that people were immoral, that they couldn't make decisions, beliefs, and have perspectives of their own. And then we'll talk about John Locke here in the future. And John Locke, he believed that people needed rights above the government. Okay, rights that were granted to them by God above the government. So it's life, liberty, and this form of property. Good. So those are the four theories I want you to remember. Okay, again, this is where people believe government originated from. What's your, in your opinion, what's your belief where government originated? 40?
I said social contract.
Social contracts?
I feel like people saw that like, hey, it's kind of like they want the tower now, so we should probably have a system.
Yeah. Okay, good, good. So form institutions, form a system to make sure that there is some sort of order, right? Okay, so maintaining social order and pretty much the four main functions of government we talked about. All right, good. Good job. Good job. Autumn, what do you think? The evolutionary theory? Okay. All right. So you're thinking that's where government originated from. Good. And we can look that back to many indigenous tribes around the world and ones that really haven't been developed over time or undeveloped countries and think, you know what, that's kind of how it works, where these people who are older, that are more experienced, they hold these positions of power. All right. Good job, Autumn. Ryan, what do you think? Evolutionary theory? Okay. So going along the same lines as Autumn there. Connor? Evolution. Okay. Gracie? All right. Rooster. Social contract. Okay. I know yesterday I got a little crazy with it. I said maybe a combination of all, right? Maybe it started with this divine right theory, this evolutionary theory. Okay. And because religion is such a high focus in many cultures around the world, that's where the belief these people would hold rule, okay, hold some sort of power. And then through the families, that's how it occurred, right? Maybe through families with births and sons, daughters, whatever it might be, they would hold the power then eventually when those people die off. Okay, and then maybe with force theory. Obviously, as these societies are forming around the world, sooner or later they're going to clash with one another over territory, over I don't know resources. Maybe it's just power alone. And after maybe that the dust settles and these societies are forming and are protecting themselves, we have this social contract theory where eventually people are accepting these types of government. Who knows, right? Who knows? But I just thought maybe it's a combination of all, right? Where this maybe originated from and how this all kind of comes about. All right, is there any questions on that? Good? All right, so I'm going to give you the vocab terms, but I'd like you to read through a couple of pages here. As you're reading through the pages, I'd like you to write down the definitions the book gives you, because that's where you're going to see them on the test. All right, so today you're going to read a little bit about states, nations, multinational states, maybe a stateless nation. And you'll read about population, sovereignty, you name it. So here are your terms for today. I'll put them up on the board. You can write them down. And as you're reading through the section, you can write down the definition. Make sure I have, oh, there we go. All right, so I know there's a lot of terms, but as you're reading through this, you should be able to write them down. No problem. And then we'll review it. We'll go over it. So on page 5, that's where we're going to start. And we'll read the cover story together. How about that? So page 5. So teens get the vote. Who'd like to read that for me? Forney, what do you think? Oh, are you looking for a book?
I don't have a book, so
What? I thought I gave you one.
No, that's the social.
Yeah, that's it. All right, I thought I gave you one. There you go. Well, someone else then, I guess. Ryan, you want to read the cover story on page 5? Teens get the vote.
Several states today to become 38 states to ratify the Constitution, which rose to go years recently. Ohio seems to have only contest legislation voted approval in the American. This surprise move to the legislation was not discussion. Also supported with North Carolina, which will be the official Congress most rapid the old record, which was over 6 months.
All right, good job. Good job. So we'll talk about some of these amendments in chapter 3 of the U.S. Constitution. But I thought that was an interesting read, especially as we're getting involved here with the principles of government and really how we can define a state, a nation, okay, and really understands the inner workings of a country. But I thought that was interesting as these states are trying to ratify the 26th Amendment to lower the voting age to 18. And I thought that was pretty cool, especially how they're all kind of running in line as like a race in a way. So read page 5, 6, 7, and you're going to finish up at the top of 8. We already went over the theories and origins of the state, so you don't need to worry about that on page 8. So 5, 6, 7, and that's about it. All right, as you're doing that, make sure you're writing the terms down here. as you're getting to page 6, look at that picture there of it talks a little bit about immigration, talks about how population can change. That one view of the classroom, there's like 5 different students sitting in a desk. I don't think that would work today with COVID. Yeah, just pile in that one desk, guys. Share it. Okay. What? Pretty outlandish there. How we doing? Still working? Okay. So again, define these terms as you're working through the reading here. Are you all finished? Yeah, I got it ready to pass. All right, we're just about to go over it, so you might have to check the lesson out. We're about to go over it, so we're gonna have to check out the lesson. All right, so what's the difference between a state and a nation? What do we got? What's a state? Rooster? Okay, all right, good job. So this is a nation? Is it a country? It's confusing, isn't it? when we're talking about a nation state, but a state is defined as a place that has sovereignty, population, okay, so meaning a government power and a defined territory. Okay, so what would be considered a state? What do you think? The United States as a whole, right? Good job. Good job. That's a good example of a state, right? Because we have a specific territory. When you're looking at the map, you can depict it and obviously associate it with other countries surrounding it or other states because of its territory, right? And we have a sovereign power that we don't have to really adhere to anybody else. Yeah, there's the United Nations where we discuss many international issues with other countries or other states, but in all reality, we have our own sovereign nation, okay, our own sovereign state. Okay, it's defined by a territory where we govern ourselves. All right, good. What about a nation? What do we define a nation as? Gracie, go ahead. Yeah, good job. Good job. So this is people that share a culture. So language, okay, maybe ethnicity. Okay, this is language, culture, you name it. Right. So a nation is a group of people, and they share common bonds of race, language, customs, and religion. Okay, so a nation doesn't necessarily mean it has to be in a defined territory. And we'll talk about that here soon. But that's the difference between a nation and a state. So, what do you think a nation state is then? A nation state. What do you think, Rooster?
Territorial boundaries on states and nations are not the same, but coincide.
Yeah, good job. Good job. So when you're looking at a specific, let's say a state, a country like the United States, we have very similar cultural background, right? In forms of entertainment, language, religion. Yeah, there's differences there. Okay. It's really hard to, I guess you could say, to analyze the United States because we have a mixture, we're a hotbed, we're a melting pot of many different beliefs and religions. But for the most part, we can associate ourselves with one language, okay, English. And we can obviously associate ourselves with different forms of religion and customs. Okay, obviously, you can do the same with France. Obviously, they speak French, right? Germany, same thing, German. All right, what about a multinational state? What does that mean? Go ahead, Brian. Yeah, good job. So that means there's two groups that might speak a different language, have different customs, religions that coincide within the same state, right? That means they're in the same country, right? The same state. So a good example would be what? You should have read about it. What's a good example of a multinational state? So this might be a country that speaks two different languages, or might have an area within that country where they have a different language being spoken or is represented. Go ahead, Gracie. Canada is a great one. Good job. Canada is a multinational state. They speak English in some parts of Canada and French in others, which I think is unique. Right. So that means it's a multinational state. Other examples, Iraq, so Sunnis, Kurds, and Shiites, it's different forms of religious groups, okay, often causing a lot of conflict and issues in many of these parts of the world. But at the same time, within that state, within that said territory, that boundary, there's multinational groups, okay, meaning that there's groups that have different languages, customs, beliefs, religions, you name it. So that's what a multinational state is. Here's some pictures of it. Right. And finally, we have, oops, sorry. Finally, we have a stateless nation. What are stateless nations? What do you think? Stateless nations. I don't think this was really in the reading, but I think it was in a vocab, right? I can't really remember. What's a stateless nation? Go ahead, Forney. Yeah, good job. So this is a group of people that have a similar language, background, ethnicity, culture, but they don't have a defined territory. They don't have a said country. When you're looking at the map, you can't find it at all. Right? A good example would be the Kurds in Iraq. Okay, it actually spreads through Iraq, Syria, and even parts of Turkey, down into Saudi Arabia. And like I said, this is a group of people. They don't have a defined territory or a country that you can pick out on the map, but they share a similar language, cultural background, religion, you name it. Okay, so that's a good example of a stateless nation. Right. Is there any questions on that, guys? So a nation, a state. Remember, when you're looking at a state, understand there's a territory. There's boundaries that depict it, and you can look at a map and actually separate it from another state or a country. A nation not necessarily has to have this territory. This is just a group of people that share a common language, background, religion, you name it. Okay, it just doesn't mean that they have a specific state. Like I said, like a stateless nation. All right, so your book also talked about territory. So it explained a little bit about territories that the United States acquired. So the question is, why did the United States decide to expand their territory? So this mostly happened in the late 1800s, moving into the 1900s. Why do you think, Forney? Resources, okay, raw materials, good job. So expansion, power. And the United States especially moved in the parts of the Pacific. Why the Pacific? Why out in the Pacific Ocean? Why do you think of the Pacific Ocean? Those of you who took me last year, you should know. Rooster, Forney, Autumn. Yeah. Okay, good job. So it's almost like a stepping stone, right? A place to refuel, resupply on our way to the Asian markets. So we can expand our influence even more out in the Pacific. Our goal with the Monroe Doctrine, remember talking about the Monroe Doctrine, was to control the Western Hemisphere. And the means of doing so, with expanding out into the Pacific, okay, it's expanding our influence, our territory, our sovereignty out into these areas. Okay, yeah, a lot of it's because of military expansion, a lot of it's resources and trade, but for the most part, a lot of it was for power as well. And I think it's interesting to talk about, especially in a book where it shows all the territories we acquired, right? And many people think, well, because it's not connected to the United States, this is separate from us. Yes, I guess you could say that, because the nations are much different. These people in Hawaii, these people, let's say America Samoa, the Philippines, they have a different culture, right? They might speak a different language. So again, when you're looking at the United States, some people consider the US being a multinational state just because of all these ethnicities, all these languages, and all these cultures. And yeah, it's true. All right, you guys know the clear difference between a nation and a state, multinational state, and even a stateless nation. Holy cow, a lot of stuff there. All right, that's all I got for today. There's no news for today, so I'm sorry.